Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be highlighting a really powerful and really versatile green deck, and it is going to be the Chaosmon green deck. So Chaosmon is introduced in BT04 Great Legend, and he is definitely looking to be a huge game changer for green, and he definitely is able to push the overall power level of green even further because now green has a level 7 that can compete with Omnimon. So Chaosmon is just an absolutely fantastic Digimon, and this is just a very powerful and versatile deck, and there's so many different ways to build this deck. It is actually kind of crazy, but we'll get into that later. So this is just my interpretation of the deck, and going into the deck, starting with the Digitama, I'm going to be running one copy of Argomon. So Argomon is a pretty powerful Digitama because it has this nice inheritable ability of during your turn, if this Digimon becomes active during your active phase, then you gain +1 memory. So this Digimon is really good at just gaining you memory for basically doing nothing. So most of the time, this ability is only going to be triggering on your Megas, but again, that's kind of just the whole theme of a lot of Digitamas. They're not really doing anything until you hit your Mega stages anyway, but Argomon just being able to give you free memory is just very, very good. And then the main Digitama of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Minomon. So Minomon has this really nice inheritable effect of when attacking, if this Digimon attacks an opponent's Digimon, then this Digimon gets +1000 DP till the end of the turn. So this is just your standard DP boost card when attacking, and the really nice thing is this isn't a once per turn when attacking skill, so if you're able to attack multiple times with a single Digimon, and Minomon is in the inheritable sources, then you get multiple instances of this ability, and that's just pretty decent to think about. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Goblimon. So Goblimon is just the value-efficient vanilla card, where cheap to play, cheap to digivolve into, and that's really all you're looking to gain out of the card. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Terrymon. So Terrymon is pretty good because he has this nice ability where during both players' turns, your opponent can't gain memory except by Tamer effects. So just passively having a Terrymon sit on the field can really hurt or limit the opponent's actions, especially if they want to try to gain memory of anything outside of a Tamer. So that's just a really good card to just kind of manipulate and control the board a little bit in a different way. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Lalamon. So Lalamon is pretty good because she gives this nice inheritable ability where during your turn, when this Digimon triggers a Digiburst ability and trashes this card, then you get to return this card to your hand. So basically, she just recycles herself if you're using a Digiburst ability, and we are going to be running a couple of Digiburst abilities in the deck. So just always being able to have a level 3 in hand is just a very nice thing to have. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Tantamon. So this is the starter deck Tantamon, and he is really good because he has this nice powerful when played ability where you get to check the top card of your deck, and if it's a green Digimon, you get to put it into your hand, otherwise it goes to the bottom of the deck. Because our deck is going to be mostly green Digimon, the ability is going to hit more times than it's going to miss, and being able to just add cards to your hand is very, very powerful. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Vegiemon. So Vegiemon is really powerful because he has this nice evo cost of 1, so he's very efficient to digivolve into, and then on top of which, he even has a relatively low play cost compared to a lot of other Digimon in his level, so if we don't see a rookie in our hand, we don't feel as bad just raw playing a Vegiemon versus a lot of others, just because, again, that low play cost makes him very easy to play. And then on top of which, he has some relatively decent DP for his level, so that way he could potentially dodge a lot of removal effects. So even though he doesn't give an ability, he's just a very efficient vanilla card for the deck. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Kabutariman. So this version of Kabutariman is pretty nice just because he has, again, an evo cost of 1, so he's very efficient to digivolve into and set up for our higher levels. And then on top of which, he even comes with a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, for every one of the opponent's rested Digimon, this Digimon gains plus 1000 DP. So just being able to DP boost is decent since we want to attack into our opponent's Digimon, and in order to do that, most of the time they have to be rested. So he just gives the DP boost to make sure that you're able to clear or remove the opponent's Digimon. So that's just a pretty decent ability to have. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Kabutariman from the starter deck. So this is a pretty decent Digimon just because, again, he has a low Evo cost of 1, so we could use him to Digivolve very, very efficiently into. And then on top of which, he even comes with the blocker ability, so he is also fulfilling the blocker role of the deck, and having some blockers is definitely really, really good at being able to defend against the opponent's aggression. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Argomon. So Argomon is a very, very powerful Digimon because he innately has this Digizorption ability, and his Digizorption ability of 3 basically allows you to rest a Digimon on your field to reduce the Digivolution cost of this card by 3. So this basically just means he evolves for 0, and if the whole goal is to try to get into our higher levels as fast and efficiently as possible, evolving for 0 is just very, very good. Even if our Digimon is rested, half the time if we're tempoing faster than our opponent, then they might not even be able to deal with the fact that we're Digivolving so quickly, and trying to also starve them of memory because all of our cards are just that hyper efficient. Argomon is just a very, very powerful Digimon for that, and then on top of which, he even comes with his own inheritable ability, where he gives the when attacking ability, you get to play a level 3 Digimon from your hand for free, but the only drawback is that it comes in rested or suspended. So that's still just a very, very powerful ability to have. Just being able to play level 3s for free is just absolutely insane, especially since we could set up Tantamon to draw some more cards. We could set up Terrymon to prevent them from gaining memory. Like, there's just a whole bunch of utility that our level 3s can have that really add a whole bunch of additional pressure just from Argomon being able to play them for free. And then the last ultimate I'm going to be running in the deck is going to be 4 copies of Blossomon. So Blossomon is in here for basically all of the same reasons that Argomon is in here. It has the Digizorption ability of 3, so effectively the Evo cost is going to be 0 most of the time if played and set up correctly. And again, that's just going to be very, very hard for the opponent to deal with just because you're able to Digivolve faster than the opponent. Next, on to the Megas, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Nidhogman. So Nidhogman is just an absolutely insane Digimon. So not only for a level 6 does it have a lot higher of a base DP than a lot of other level 6s, so that just makes it very sticky of a body, but on top of which it has a very, very powerful ability. So its when Digivolving ability is Digiburst 4, so you have to trash 4 cards from the Digivolution sources to get the card's ability, and its ability is you get to suspend all of the opponent's Digimon that have 5000 DP or less, and then you get to put all of the opponent's suspended Digimon back to the bottom of the deck in any order. So this is just absolutely insane because not only is it a board clear for basically a lot of those smaller go wide strategies, but it also just puts any suspended Digimon back. So it could be a Mega that's been suspended, it could be an ultimate, it doesn't necessarily matter. As long as it's suspended, Nidhogman will put it back to the bottom of the deck, and that's just really, really powerful of an ability because it is one of the few very powerful board clears in the game, and that just allows you to control the board that much more efficiently, on top of it having a very, very large body on board. Yes, the drawback is that the Evo cost is relatively high, but because we're Digivolving up into our level 6s very, very efficiently, sometimes it's not all that bad to just raw play it, but we do have a card in the deck to help mitigate that cost as well. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Hercules Kabutariman. So this is the starter deck Hercules Kabutariman, and this is just another very powerful and very fantastic card that synergizes very well with the deck. So the first big thing to note is its abilities. So its first main ability is it does just have piercing when you're able to delete the opponent's Digimon by battle and Hercules Kabutariman's able to survive. Then you do deal security damage to the opponent. So this allows you to just chip away at the opponent's board and security all at the same time. And then on top of which, it also has the main ability of Digiburst 2, where you trash 2 cards from under this card, and then you get to do the following effect, which is rest one of the opponent's Digimon down. So this basically just allows you to just Digiburst, rest one of the opponents down, and then, oh hey, they have a Digimon in rest, so I'm going to use Hercules Kabutariman to swing into it and then deal piercing damage. And then this, again, just is the reason why Lalamon is really in the deck, because a lot of our Megas do have the Digiburst ability, so we get to add it back into our hand. If we have Argomon in the source, then we add it to our hand, and then Argomon plays it for free. So there's just a whole bunch of very powerful synergy with the deck, and it's just a very, very powerful card overall. Yes, it does have some relatively high Evo cost, but again, we're just efficiently digivolving up into our Megas, where sometimes that doesn't necessarily matter. And then on top of which, we do, again, have a card to help mitigate this, and he has a relatively large body, so he's able to clear a lot of potential Digimon, especially with some of our effects helping to DP boost him. Next, on to our level 7s, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Chaosmon. So Chaosmon is just a very, very powerful level 7 for the deck. Unfortunately, he is white, so keep that in mind. But we're really only using Chaosmon to just help control and manipulate the board, just because he has some very powerful abilities. So his first ability is he has piercing. So similar to like what I said with Hercules Kabutariman, all that applies to here. So he just really wants to beat up onto the opponent's Digimon to deal some security damage at the same time while getting rid of the opponent's Digimon. And then on top of all that, he has an absolutely really powerful when Digivolved ability where you get to unsuspend this Digimon, and then this Digimon can attack an opponent's Digimon, and that attack can even target an opponent's Digimon that's unsuspended. So even if we're unable to rest one of the opponent's big problematic Digimon down, we could still just Digivolve up into Chaosmon, and then Chaosmon will be able to attack it even if it's not suspended just because of his ability. Just being able to reach Digimon that we normally can't is just absolutely insane for the deck, especially comboed with Piercing and all of our DP boosting abilities. Even though if you Digivolve him for 6 and it passes over to the opponent's side in terms of memory, you still get to attack with this Digimon because the full ability of his when Digivolved ability has to resolve before it goes to the opponent's turn. So that's just one really powerful thing to note, is the fact that he can attack even if you pass the turn over to the opponent, just because, again, the ability has to resolve. So that's just one really, really powerful thing, and it just adds a whole bunch of extra pressure onto the opponent and is just a very, very powerful Digimon in his own right. And then the last Mega of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Chaosmon Volderarm. So Chaosmon Volderarm is the other level 7 of the deck. Similar to normal Chaosmon, Volderarm is doing some very, very powerful things in his own right and is also controlling the board, but in a different way. So he has a nice when Digivolved ability. You get to activate the following ability twice, and that ability is one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 7,000 DP until the end of the turn. So this is just very powerful because you could use this to basically target 2 Digimon and minus 7,000 DP on both of those, or you could stack it on 1 Digimon and minus 14,000. So the utility definitely helps the power of the card depending on the situation and the Digimon on field. So that's just really, really powerful of a removal effect. And then on top of which, he has a nice on-deletion ability of gaining 3 memory. So you basically don't really care if he lives or dies, just because you're going to be gaining some benefit if he does. So whether the opponent is able to delete them through combat or their own effects, you're basically going to be taking away 3 memory from them if it's on their turn. Or if you're just aggressing into the opponent's security with him and he is unfortunate enough to be deleted through a security check, then you're just going to be gaining 3 memory during your turn, and just being able to manipulate memory is just a very, very powerful thing in general. Next, in terms of options, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Hidden Potential Discovered. So this card is broken. Like, this card is probably the most broken card in the whole deck. So it has a couple of very powerful things that it's doing. First, it costs 0. So that means it's just free to play. And then it has a very nice security effect of being able to add this card to your hand. So that way you have the availability of being able to play it, even if it's in your security. And then what's really broken about this card is its main ability. Its main ability is that if one of your green Digimon would Digivolve this turn, you could suspend one of your Digimon to reduce the memory cost of the Digivolution by 5. So this is basically just Digisorption 5 on an option card, and that's just really, really powerful because it allows us to get into our Megas for basically free. This kind of just helps mitigate a lot of the evolution cost on a lot of our higher levels. So even if we just have a unrested Mega, like Hercules Kabutariman on the field, with Hidden Potential Discovered, we could basically Digivolve into Chaosmon for 1, and then Chaosmon's ability will be able to unsuspend him, and we could just do a whole bunch of crazy shenanigans from there. So this card just combos with a whole bunch of different things. On top of which, getting something like a Nidhogman or even Chaosmon Volderarm out for like 1 or 0 is just, again, very, very powerful, and it allows us to just Digivolve way faster and way more efficient than our opponent could ever hope for. So Hidden Potential Discovered is just an absolute bonkers and broken card. And then lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm just going to be running 2 copies of Mimi. So the green Mimi is really, really good because she has 2 really nice abilities. Her first ability is she's just the memory fixing tamer, where if our memory is 2 or less, then it becomes 3. So just always being able to have 3 memory is just very, very nice. And then on top of which, her main ability is if we have a level 5 or higher green Digimon in play, then we get to rest this card and basically we just get another breeding or raising phase. So that's just really, really powerful because Digimon that come out of the breeding or raising area, they aren't affected by summoning sickness, and we could use this in combination with a whole bunch of other cards for some very, very powerful and potent plays, where we could use this to just set up another Hidden Potential Discovered to try to get into our Mega that much more faster and efficiently. Or we could just use this to just create a really big and powerful board that's going to be very, very hard for the opponent to deal with. And then, like I said, there's just a whole bunch of different options in terms of cards that you could include and think about, and green just has a whole bunch of really powerful flexibility. So, like, you could just run Tantamon or Modimon as just some extra DP boosters. You could run Argomon or Palmon as just some extra DP boosters in the rookie slot. You could run Woodmon as an optional blocker. You could run Togemon to help consistency of the deck. If you're going for more of the download or Digisorption strategy, then you could just continue to run Argomon. You could also think about running Gargomon just as another way to DP boost in the champion slot. It's basically doing the exact same thing as Kabutariman is. You could also run Stingmon for some piercing synergy to just be able to gain some memory. You could also run Togemon for just some more DP boosting in the champion level. You could run Okuomon for basically doing everything that Stingmon is doing, gaining you memory on deletion, so it's really rewarding you for those piercing strategies. You could run Lilymon just to be able to rest the opponent's Digimon down. You could run Cherrymon as a blocker in the ultimate slot if you want to play a little bit more defensive. You could run Lalamon just for some more Digiburst synergy, where she has her own Digiburst to rest one of the opponent's Digimon down, and then on top of which she basically has the same effect as Lalamon, where she's just going to be able to rest one of the opponent's Digimon down when you're attacking. You could also think about running the Lilymon from the starter deck just because of all the same reasons why you'd want to run Togemon, just for consistency. You could also think about running Mega Kabutariman from the green starter deck because this card is just absolutely insane on its inheritable ability that it's giving, where when you delete one of your opponent's Digimon by battle and yours survives, then you just get to trash one of the opponent's security, so he's just dealing some extra security damage and rewarding you for that piercing strategy. In terms of alternate megas that you could possibly run, you could think about running Tantamon, just because Tantamon is just a value-efficient vanilla card, so it allows you to just get into your level 7s that much faster. You could also think about running Puppetmon, because Puppetmon is just very, very powerful. His on-play ability, just being able to rest one of the opponent's Digimon and stunlock all of the opponent's rested Digimon, is just a very powerful ability to have. And then on top of which, his when attacking, gaining you memory is very nice. Most of the time, because you're going to be raw playing him for his on-play effect, you'll just try to Digivolve up into Chaosmon right after, so he just has a whole bunch of powerful synergy with the deck still. If you're playing into the whole Digizorption or download ability, then Chaosmon is a great complement for that, because it just allows you to rest the opponent's Digimon down while paying for your Digizorption abilities, so it gives you targets to attack into, on top of which it's just a very powerful card in its own right. You could also think about running Mega Gargomon as basically just a mini Puppetmon with a nice when Digivolved ability of doing something very similar to Puppetmon, of basically resting and stunlocking one of the opponent's Digimon down, and then if the opponent has a rested Digimon, then he gains Security Tech +1, and because we really don't have a good way of dealing a lot of extra damage onto the opponent, having that Security Tech +1 could matter. You could play a little bit harder into the piercing side of things and run Bancho Stingmon, because he has piercing and he is able to beat up on Digimon that have 12,000 or more DP, and then he'll even gain Security Tech +2, and then this buff does transfer over to Chaosmon when you Digivolve up into Chaosmon, so you could potentially use him in combination with Chaosmon to deal just a lot of security damage onto the opponent. And then if you're playing around with Digiburst, you could also think about running the promo Grand Kawagomon, because, again, similar reasons to Bancho Stingmon, the buff that Grand Kawagomon does give to Chaosmon does transfer over, and then Chaosmon does have piercing, so you'll be able to give Chaosmon some extra security tech, and then Chaosmon is going to be able to pierce the opponent and deal lots of security damage. You could also think about running some different option cards like Flower Cannon to be able to rest one of your opponent's Digimon down, and then its security effect is also pretty nice, where you just continue to rest the opponent's Digimon down. You could also think about running Needle Spray, which its main ability is basically the same thing as Flower Cannon, but its security ability is, I would say, arguably better, where you only get to rest one of the opponent's Digimon down, but then this card gets added to your hand, so you have some extra utility and usability there. If you want another really big removal option, then you could think about running Terror Cluster. So Terror Cluster, if the opponent has a rested Digimon, then you just basically use this card to put that card on the bottom of the opponent's deck, and then its security effect is activating its main effect. So this is basically just like the Gaia Force for green. If you want an alternate tamer, you could think about running Ken. So Ken really benefits the whole piercing strategy. And then you could also think about running Metal Tyrannomon, because he combos very, very nicely with a lot of our level 6s, and he combos really, really nicely with Chaosmon as well. So like I said, there's just a whole bunch of different options in terms of cards that you could run and utilize basically any number of these and not really feel bad, because like they're all doing very, very powerful things that all synergize with the deck very, very nicely. So for the most part, this is kind of just the deck. It has, again, a lot of versatility and flexibility in terms of how it could be built and how you want to build it. Again, this is just my interpretation, but as I mentioned before, there's just a ton of different cards that you could utilize in green to kind of just make your own custom Chaosmon deck, and it'll still be very powerful and very efficient. So Chaosmon just is a huge game changer, and green just as a whole has a lot of very powerful options and different utility cards that you could utilize to really just do kind of whatever you want with. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, I'll have the deck list down in the description below, and feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comment section below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.